back, Mason
Yep.
Blakemore.
I was just chatting with Sam. Welcome back, everybody, to Hot Mike here on this Monday morning. WDAY Extra, Inforum.com, KSFL, KMBN, and, of course, all of our websites. As we do each and every Monday, not just during football season, we visit with Sam Herder from Hero Sports, BetMGM, as we get set for another busy week. And the news never stops, Sam, in the offseason when finding out that Tennessee State is now open. Eddie George, after leading the Tigers to the FCS playoffs, is now off to Maction. He was hired officially yesterday as head coach at Bowling Green, which timing of this is never good. But I mean, we're in spring football now, man. This is a tough time to be leaving.
Yeah, there's obviously never an ideal time, whether it's, you get the announcement of the head coach leaving in the middle of a playoff run or right before a playoff game like we saw with Idaho. But I mean, whether it's January or February or now March, it's always a tough time, but especially this late in the process of just the off season. And with Eddie George, you kind of felt like he was building something, pretty strong at Tennessee State. Were they ever going to win a national title or anything? No, but they went from, pretty, not too relevant on the national FCS picture to, making the playoffs this year. And they competed decently well at Montana. But you felt that while he was building something pretty strong there, that he probably wasn't going to be around for too long, just because he was getting big time interviews. What was it, like Chicago Bears? He interviewed there. And so you felt like at some point he was probably going to leave. But, once that the whole coaching carousel kind of wrapped up, okay. Coach George is going to stay for at least one more year. Then, the Bowling Green head coach leaves and then Eddie George gets the Bowling Green opening, which is an interesting move. I thought maybe you could have held out for a better head coaching job at the FBS level. I don't like he'll get a pay increase for sure at Bowling Green, but I don't know if the Bowling Green coach last year made over 500,000. Like it was a pretty low paying job, and so. I felt maybe you could have held out for a better FBS opening next year, but ultimately it's it's a step up in the coaching ranks.
Scott Loeffler was the Bowling Green coach who left to take the job with the Eagles. Not even a coordinator job, but that's college coaches can't wait to get out to get to the NFL. You mentioned the job he did. Obviously, they made the FCS playoffs. They shared the Big South OVC championship this year. I thought he was different in the sense of how he was coaching as opposed to Dion. Dion has certainly made it about himself and about certainly his sons and Travis Hunter. I got a sense Eddie, when we talked with him when they got ready to play the Bison, was invested in trying to make this about the program and getting them into a spot where they were in the mention of being one of the upper echelon FCS teams, which now with him gone, I'm really interested to see what happens to Tennessee State as a program, Sam.
Yeah, and, celebrity hires are somewhat popular now, whether it was, Deion Sanders or now we have Deshaun Jackson, in the FCS.
Michael Vick in the FCS.
Michael Vick, yep. I mean, even like Trent Dilfer in a sense, like somewhat of a celebrity hire there. Eddie George is he was kind of in that, vein of like a celebrity hire, but at the same time, like you said, he kind of just felt a little bit different than Deion Sanders, where, Coach Sanders felt like he was, there to make a splash and to really disrupt things. Whereas Eddie George was kind of seemed like he had a long-term vision rather than like immediate success, transfer, and all of that. And so, yeah, like I said, it felt like he was building something at Tennessee State, but at the same time, it's just the reality of a mid-major. Once, even at the group of five level, once you have, a solid program, it's going to be very, very difficult to hold on to your head coach.
They have Tennessee State. We were just visiting off air, maybe on air about this. Have not made any announcement yet of who they're going to have as their replacement, correct?
Yeah, I haven't seen anything. Typically, when a head coach leaves that team that he is leaving, like they'll make some sort of announcements. Not that they need to, but they'll typically say, Eddie George has resigned to take the Bowling Green opening. And then, somewhere in there, I usually scroll to the bottom to see what they say, whether whether it's a national search for a new head coach will begin, but we haven't seen anything like that for Tennessee State, which somewhat leads me to believe maybe they're looking internally. I think Brandon Fisher makes a lot of sense to be promoted from defensive coordinator to head coach. Now I don't know where things are at. I'm sure Coach George would love to bring Coach Fisher with him to Bowling Green, or maybe Brandon Fisher has head coach aspirations where he could step up to be Tennessee State's new head coach. His father is Jeff Fisher, and so he has head coaching in his blood.
Right.
Brandon knows the FCS well. He actually played at Montana in the late 2000s. I believe he even played in a couple of national championship games, and so and he's done pretty well, as the defensive coordinator there. They were playing at the progress Tennessee State made defensively from the start of the year to the end of the year was pretty strong, and so that's who I think maybe they would target. But where those conversations are at, I don't know. They could have him be the interim head coach. That's
Right.
what UAlbany did, because
Yes.
UAlbany's head coach left pretty late in the process too, and then they promoted Coach Ambrose. UAlbany did to interim head coach just to see how things go in the first year. They could also do that with Coach Fisher if he wants that opportunity.
And Tennessee State opens the first 3 games of the season are at home. They have North Carolina A&T. Obviously, they have North Dakota State, which I want to get to that impact in a minute, and then Alabama A&M. And you can make what you will of what the Big South OVC is this year. SEMO, who is another Bison opponent for this upcoming season. UT Martin was pretty good until the end of the year. I'm interested in what they do at quarterback, because their quarterback went in the portal and Traylon Ellis. What this team is, they had talent. Eddie George's son was pretty darn good on the other side of the ball as a defensive player. I'm intrigued to see what if they fall flat and become irrelevant again, or do they stay pretty solid? That's the thing we don't know.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see kind of where they go from here. And of course, with the head coach leaving, the players now have a new 30-day window to enter the transfer portal, and that's going to go probably right up against the spring
Yeah,
transfer
exactly
portal
right.
window. And so Tennessee State fans will definitely be sweating to see who's leaving, who's staying. Yeah, their schedule is interesting. I think I was going through it a month ago. I think they have like 8 home games.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. I mean, it is a 12-game season, but I know Montana has 8 home games, which they'll make a lot of money off of. But to see Tennessee State also have 8 home games, and to get NDSU at home
Yep.
it is really good scheduling for them. And they have a decent fan base. I think they continue to grow kind of in their following. It's being in Nashville could be good and bad, because you kind of you in a sense, you kind of get buried a little bit. You kind of get lost in the shuffle at the same time. There are so many opportunities for corporate sponsors there, where you keep on putting it on a winning product, and more people want to do sponsorships with you. And I think they were kind of breaking ground on that with Eddie George there. And now where they go from here, I don't know. But again, if they go with Fisher and promote him, that gives a little bit of stability. But how many guys is Coach George going to bring with them to Bowling Green? That we see that quite a bit with Idaho and South Dakota State. So yeah, definitely something to monitor.
So the crazy part of this, with George leaving, that means North Dakota State, Sam, will face 5 new coaches in 2025, which is outrageous. We know South Dakota State, North Dakota, Tennessee State, and Northern Iowa. That's nearly half of the Bison schedule will be filled with first-year coaches, which is maybe it's more not as random or crazy as I think, considering the era we live in now, but that's a lot for a team that's going to be seeing a lot of new blood on the other sideline.
Yeah, it's an interesting stat, and it maybe goes to show that there has been a decent amount of turnover at the FCS level. Although this offseason there's been 23 head coaching changes. Last year there was, I want to say, 30, and so and then the year before that was 28. And so technically this year is a bit more slow when it comes to head coaching changes. But I do think you are seeing a lot of turnover, and especially in the Valley. I mean, the Dakotas had 3 veteran head coaches for a while there with Stig, Nielsen, and Bubba as well. And now there's been some turnover in the Dakotas, and we were talking that Brock Spack is now the most veteran head coach in the league. And then after that, it's probably Nick Hill at Southern Illinois. And there's a pretty big gap as far as number of years as head coach between those two. And so, yeah, a lot of turnover at the head coaching ranks in the Valley. And sometimes maybe that could be a good thing, just with like new vision and kind of this new era of of college football and in the FCS where NIL is a thing and cost of attendance is a thing. And I saw that South Dakota State hired a general manager.
Yes,
Pretty sure a former NDSU
he
player.
is. Tyler
Um,
Rice is a former Bison.
yeah,
Yep.
that's right. Like the general manager role is like now like a new position in college football, and
Yep.
you're seeing FCS teams have this general manager that kind of oversees things. And so, maybe not a terrible thing to kind of have new blood at the head coaching ranks, just kind of a new vision. But that is an interesting stat that there have been so many veteran head coaches in the Valley and now, especially in the Dakotas. I mean, Tim Polisic is the grizzled veteran head coach of going on his second year,
Yeah.
the most seasoned veteran head coach in the Dakotas.
So this is how it goes now for the Valley. Spack, then Nick Hill, Kurt Mallory at Indiana State, Doug Phillips at Youngstown. Those are the four senior coaches. Then after that, it's Polasek and Jody Wright, who each in their second year, Wright at Murray State. And then Dan Jackson, Travis Johansson, Eric Schmidt, and Todd Sepsis at Northern Iowa. That's so automatically Polasek is the fifth longest tenured coach, and he's in his second year.
Yeah, and Mallory and Phillips aren't, what are they, like 4 or 5 years
Yeah,
on
man,
the
I think
job?
Kurt's in his sixth year. He's been at Indiana State a little bit. I think 17 was
Okay.
his first year at
Okay.
Indiana State.
Yeah.
So
And even, I mean, Coach Hill still seems like a young head coach.
yes,
But I think he was in his younger 30s when he took over
correct.
at Southern Illinois. So yeah, it'll be interesting. And I don't know, hopefully this is a different topic, but hopefully the Valley gets a in-person media day this year, because
Yes,
it'd be fun just to,
yes.
go table to table and talk to each one of these, head coaches and kind of talk to some of the new blood head coaching wise in the Valley.
One other coaching thing, and honestly, he was actually, and you reported this as well, was in line maybe for the Bowling Green job, was Mercer coach Mike Jacobs, who we saw obviously up here in December. He got a contract extension through 2030, I want to believe, with Mercer, correct?
Yes, he did get a contract extension or like a new contract that maybe extended it, but probably just one of those things where it gave him a pay bump to make it more enticing to stay. Probably a higher buyout as well, just to protect the program
He's a good
a
coach.
little bit because
I like him. He's a good coach. I think I'm interested to see. That's another program with what they lost. Are they going to be stable in the SoCon? Like we're just talking about Tennessee State. Is Mercer going to go away now after all their best players left?
right. And last year at this time, Mercer made the playoffs. They lost their head coach. And they lost their star receivers and
Late
quarterback.
too. Yep.
As well. And I think they got some top 25 votes, but they weren't preseason top 25 at all heading into
No.
last season. And they make a quarterfinal run. And, I think that goes to show how good of a coaching job that Coach Jacobs did. And I remember talking to a Mercer staffer at SoCon Media Days, and he was just saying that he's been around a lot of head coaches, and there was just something about Coach Jacobs that like he gives that head coach feel, like in a good way, like just how organized he is, how structured he is, and how to build and run a program. He obviously had success at the D2 level. And so, again, how long will Mercer be able to hang on to him? If they make another decent playoff run, we'll see. But I think the fact that his name was out there for the Bowling Green job, he didn't get it, or maybe he wasn't in the running. I don't know. But for Mercer to hang on to him for at least another year is really good for them, because I think they could, they lose a decent amount defensively, but I think they could rebuild and be a top SoCon team once again.
I don't care if it's March Madness. Football season never ends, and we always got stuff to talk about. Thanks for the time as always, bud, and we'll see you next Monday, okay?
All right. Sounds good. Thank you.
Sam Herder joins us each and every Monday. Chat what's going on in FCS football. The big news there with Eddie George leaving Tennessee State to take the Bowling Green job. We'll find out who is the new coach at Tennessee State. But again, for you Bison football fans, NDSU will have 5 new coaches on the schedule in 2025. They play 12 games. That's nearly half for the Bison for this upcoming year. The other breaking news, everyone can breathe. Twitter is back online, so everything's back. There you go. We'll break. We come back. Got a couple emails to get to. Jeff Kolpak coming up in our second hour, and Mason Kraft will join us, Mr. Hockey, at 10:35. That's coming up as we roll on a busy Monday. We're back after this.